Wikipedia is a free, collaborative, multilingual internet encyclopedia supported by the non-profit Wikimedia Foundation. Its 21 million articles, which includes over 3.8 million in English, have been written collaboratively by volunteers around the world. Almost all its articles can be edited by anyone with access to the site, and it has about 100,000 regularly active contributors. As of January 2012, there are editions of Wikipedia in 283 languages. It has become the largest and most popular general reference work on the internet, ranking 6th globally among all websites on Alexa and having an estimated 365 million readers worldwide. It is estimated that Wikipedia receives 2.7 billion monthly page views from the United States alone. Wikipedia was launched in 2001 by Jimmy Wales and Larry Sanger. Sanger coined the name Wikipedia, which is a portmanteau of wiki, a technology for creating websites collaboratively, from the Hawaiian word wiki, meaning quick, and encyclopedia. Art is a term that describes a diverse range of human activities and the products of those activities, but it is most often understood to refer to painting, film, photography, sculpture, and other visual media. Music, theatre, dance, literature, and interactive media are included in a broader definition of art, or the arts. Until the 17th century, art referred to any skill or mastery, and was not differentiated from crafts or sciences, but in modern usage the fine arts are distinguished from acquired skills in general. Many definitions of art have been proposed by philosophers and others who have characterized art in terms of mimesis, expression, communication of emotion, or other values. During the Romantic period, art came to be seen as a special faculty of the human mind, to be classified with religion and science. The nature of art and related concepts such as creativity and interpretation are explored in a branch of philosophy known as aesthetics. A performance in performing arts generally comprises an event in which a performer or group of performers behave in a particular way for another group of people, the audience. Choral music and ballet are examples. Usually the performers participate in rehearsals beforehand. Afterwards, audience members often applaud. The means of expressing appreciation can vary by culture. Chinese performers will clap with the audience at the end of a performance. The return applause signals thank you to the audience. In Japan, folk performing arts performances commonly attract individuals who take photographs, sometimes getting up to the stage and within inches of the performers' faces. Sometimes the dividing line between performer and audience may become blurred, as in the example of participatory theatre, where audience members get involved in the production. Theatrical performances can take place daily or at some other regular interval. Performances can take place at designated performance spaces, such as a theatre or a concert hall, or in a non-conventional space, such as a subway station, on the street, or in someone's home. Deaf performances often involve the applause coming in the form of the audience raising their hands in the air, since deaf people wouldn't be able to hear the clapping. Examples of performance genres include musical genres, concert, recital, music competition. Theatrical genres, play, opera, operetta, ballet or other types of dance, or musical theatre. Other genres include circus acts, performance art, live art, performance poetry, busking, magic or illusion, storytelling. A performance may describe the way in which an actor performs. In a solo capacity, it may also refer to a mime artist, comedian, conjurer, or other entertainer. Collaboration is working together to achieve a goal. It is a recursive process where two or more people or organizations work together to realize shared goals. This is more than the intersection of common goals seen in cooperative ventures, but a deep collective determination to reach an identical objective. For example, an intriguing endeavour that is creative in nature, by sharing knowledge, learning and building consensus. Most collaboration requires leadership, although the form of leadership can be social within a decentralised and egalitarian group. In particular, teams that work collaboratively can obtain greater resources, recognition and reward when facing competition for finite resources. Collaboration is also present in opposing goals, exhibiting the notion of adversarial collaboration, although this is not a common case for using the word. Structured methods of collaboration encourage introspection of behaviour and communication. These methods specifically aim to increase the success of teams as they engage in collaborative problem solving. Forms, rubrics, charts and graphs are useful in these situations to objectively document personal traits within the goal of performance in current and future projects. Since the Second World War, the term collaboration acquired a very negative meaning as referring to persons or groups which help a foreign occupier of their country, due to actual use by people in European countries who worked with and for the Nazi German occupiers. Linguistically, collaboration implies more or less equal partners who work together, which is obviously not the case when one party is an army of occupation and the others are people of the occupied country living under the power of this army. In order to make a distinction, the more specific term collaborationism is often used for this phenomenon of collaboration with an occupying army. However, there is no watertight distinction. Collaboration and collaborator, as well as collaborationism and collaborationist, are often used in this pejorative sense, and even more so the equivalent terms in French and other languages spoken in countries which experienced direct Nazi occupation. The English word slave comes from the old French word sklave, from the medieval Latin sklavus, and from the Byzantine Greek, and then all the letters I can't read, which in turn comes from the ethnonym Slav, because in some wars in early medieval times, many Slavs were captured and enslaved. An older theory connected it to the Greek verb skilio, to strip a slain enemy. In psychology, memory is the ability of an organism to store, retain and recall information and experiences. Traditional studies of memory began in the fields of philosophy, including techniques of artificially enhancing memory. During the late 19th and 20th century, scientists have put memory within the paradigm of cognitive psychology. Experts believe that memory is a complex brain-wide process that does not only occur in one specific region of the brain. The process of memory begins with encoding, then proceeds to storage, and eventually retrieval. In recent decades, it has become one of the principal pillars of a branch of science called cognitive neuroscience, an interdisciplinary link between cognitive psychology and neuroscience. Sensory memory corresponds approximately to the initial 200 to 500 milliseconds after an item is perceived. The ability to look at an item and remember what it looked like with just a second of observation or memorization is an example of sensory memory. With very short presentations, participants often report that they seem to see more than they can actually report. The first experiments exploring this form of sensory memory were conducted by George Sperling in 1963, using the partial report paradigm. Subjects were presented with a grid of 12 letters, arranged into 3 rows of 4. After a brief presentation, subjects were then played either a high, medium or low tone, cueing them which of the rows to report. Based on these partial report experiments, Sperling was able to show the capacity of sensory memory was approximately 12 items, but that it degraded very quickly within a few hundred milliseconds. Because this form of memory degrades so quickly, participants would see the display but be unable to report all of the items before they decayed. This type of memory cannot be prolonged by a rehearsal. There are many types of sensory memories. Iconic memory is a type of sensory memory that briefly stores an image which has been perceived for a small duration. of sensory memory that briefly stores sounds which have been perceived for a small duration. Short-term memory. Short-term memory allows recall for a period of several seconds to a minute without rehearsal. Its capacity is also very limited. George A. Miller, 1956, when working at Bell Laboratories, conducted experiments showing that the store of short-term memory was 7 plus or minus 2 items. The title of his famous paper, The Magical Number 7 plus or minus 2. Modern estimates of the capacity of short-term memory are lower, typically on the order of 4 or 5 items. However, memory capacity can be increased through a process called chunking. For example, in recalling a 10-digit telephone number, a person could chunk the digits into 3 groups. First, the area code, then a 3-digit chunk, and lastly, a 4-digit chunk. This method of remembering telephone numbers is far more effective than attempting to remember a string of 10 digits. This is because we are able to chunk the information into meaningful groups of numbers. Herbert Simon showed that the ideal size for chunking letters and numbers, meaningful or not, was 3. This may be reflected in some countries in the tendency to remember telephone numbers as several chunks of 3 numbers, with the final 4 number groups generally broken down into 2 groups of 2. Short-term memory is believed to rely mostly on an acoustic code for storing information, and to a lesser extent a visual code. Conrad, 1964, found that test subjects had more difficulty recalling collections of letters that were acoustically similar, for example E, P, D, C. Confusion with recalling acoustically similar letters rather than visually similar letters implies that the letters were not encoded acoustically. Conrad's study in 1964, however, deals with the encoding of written text. Thus, while memory of written language may rely on acoustic components, generalizations to all forms of memory cannot be made. Long-term memory. The storage in sensory memory and short-term memory generally have a strictly limited capacity and duration, which means that information is not retained indefinitely. By contrast, long-term memory can store much larger quantities of information for potentially unlimited duration, sometimes a whole lifespan. Its capacity is immeasurably large. For example, given a random 7-digit number, we may remember it for only a few seconds before forgetting, suggesting it was stored in our short-term memory. On the other hand, we can remember telephone numbers for many years through repetition. This information is said to be stored in long-term memory. While short-term memory encodes information acoustically, long-term memory encodes it semantically. Baddeley, 1966, discovered that after 20 minutes, test subjects had the most difficulty recalling a collection of words that had similar meanings. Big, large, great, huge, on the long term. Short-term memory is supported by transient patterns of neuronal communication, dependent on regions of the frontal lobe, especially dorsolateral prefrontal cortex and the parietal lobe. Long-term memories, on the other hand, are maintained by more stable and permanent changes in neural connections widely spread throughout the brain. The hippocampus is essential for learning new information, to the consolidation of information from short-term to long-term memory, although it does not seem to store information itself. Without the hippocampus, new memories are unable to be stored into long-term memory, and there will be a very short attention span. Furthermore, it may be involved in changing neural connections for a period of 3 months or more after the initial learning. One of the primary functions of sleep is thought to be improving consolidation of information, as several studies have demonstrated that memory depends on getting sufficient sleep between training and test. Additionally, data obtained from neuroimaging studies have shown activation patterns in the sleeping brain, which mirror those recorded during the learning of tasks from the previous day, suggesting that new memories may be solidified through such rehearsal. Research has suggested that long-term memory storage in humans may be regulated by DNA methylation.